I, 32M, and my wife Kimberly, 29F, have been married for 7 years, together for 10. We met through mutual friends at a college reunion. I was finishing my MBA and she was starting her career in marketing. Our relationship moved quickly because we just clicked. After dating for 3 years, we had a small wedding with close family and friends. Now we have a 4-year-old daughter Emma who is our entire world. We both have good jobs. I work in finance and Kimberly is a marketing director. We bought our dream house in the suburbs 2 years ago and until recently had great relationships with both our families. The current situation involves Kimberly's younger brother Brian, 16M. There's a big age gap between Kimberly and Brian because he was a surprise baby when their parents were in their 40s. Brian has always been troubled, and I've watched his behavior get worse over the years. When we first met, he was 6 and already showing signs of aggression, hitting other kids at school, throwing tantrums if he didn't get his way, and being cruel to animals. Kimberly's parents always made excuses, saying he was just spirited or going through a phase. By age 12, Brian was regularly getting into fights at school. He started smoking, drinking, and hanging out with older kids who were clearly bad influences. He's been caught shoplifting multiple times, but Kimberly's parents always managed to talk the store owners out of pressing charges. Last year, he was arrested twice, once for vandalism and once for assault after he beat up a younger kid at school. Both times, his parents hired expensive lawyers to get the charges dropped. Despite multiple warnings from his schools and meetings with counselors, Kimberly's parents refused to get him proper help. They've tried bribing him with expensive gifts, but that just made his entitlement worse. They're well off and worried about their reputation, so they keep covering up his mistakes instead of addressing the real issues. The current crisis started when Brian got expelled from his 3rd school in 2 years. This time it was for starting a fire in the bathroom and threatening a teacher who caught him. Instead of finally getting him the help he needs, Kimberly's parents called us with their brilliant solution. They want Brian to live with us for a few months. Their reasoning is that the schools in our area are better, code for more expensive and willing to put up with problem students if you donate enough. They think moving him away from his bad influences will magically fix everything. They also mentioned that having a strong male role model, meaning me, would be good for him. I immediately said no. Kimberly was hesitant, not wanting to upset her parents, but eventually agreed with me. We had very good reasons for refusing. Brian stayed with us last Christmas for a weekend and it was an absolute nightmare. He was rude and aggressive from the moment he arrived, making comments about our boring suburban life and how we were stuck up. He broke our new TV while playing video games, threw the controller at the screen during a rage quit, and refused to apologize. We caught him trying to steal money from Kimberly's purse, and when confronted, he threatened to tell his parents we were abusing him. But the main reason, the one that makes this a hard no, was an incident with Emma. We walked in on Brian showing Emma inappropriate content on his phone. I'm not comfortable sharing exactly what it was, but it was definitely sexual in nature and completely inappropriate for a 4-year-old. When I confronted him, he laughed and said he was just joking around and that I should lighten up. We told Kimberly's parents immediately, but they dismissed it as kids being kids and said Brian probably didn't understand what he was showing her. That was the last time we allowed Brian in our house. Kimberly's parents didn't take our refusal well. They've been calling nonstop for weeks, switching between guilt-tripping and aggressive demands. They tell Kimberly she's abandoning her baby brother and that she'll regret it forever if something happens to him. They've been sending articles about troubled teens who turn their lives around with family support and statistics about teen suicide to manipulate us. They even got Kimberly's extended family involved. Her aunts and uncles have been messaging us constantly saying we're selfish for not helping a troubled child. Some have suggested we're bad parents ourselves if we can't handle a teenager. One aunt even said we're teaching Emma to abandon family in times of need. Yesterday, everything exploded. Kimberly's parents showed up unannounced at our house with Brian and 3 suitcases. They said they were done enabling our selfishness and that Brian was staying whether we liked it or not. When I blocked the doorway, Kimberly's dad tried to push past me while her mom created a scene on our front lawn, crying and yelling about how we were destroying the family. Brian just stood there with that same smirk he had when we caught him with Emma, occasionally making comments about how I was afraid of having him around. I had to threaten to call the police before they finally left. By then, several neighbors had come out to watch the drama. Brian made sure to yell about how we rejected him as they drove away, probably hoping to make us look bad to the neighbors. Kimberly is devastated. She's been crying on and off since yesterday, saying maybe we should give Brian one more chance. I reminded her about the incident with Emma and she agreed we can't risk it, but she's clearly torn. Her parents are now threatening to cut contact and tell the entire extended family that we're heartless people who abandon a child in need. I'm standing firm, but this situation is putting serious strain on our marriage. Kimberly's phone is constantly buzzing with hateful messages from family members. Some of our mutual friends who heard her parents' version of events are also criticizing us, saying we should step up and help family. But I absolutely won't put Emma at risk, no matter what anyone says. Am I wrong for refusing to take in Brian? Should I compromise for Kimberly's sake? How do I handle her family's harassment? Edit, to clarify some questions from comments, yes, Brian has a history of other concerning behaviors around children. At a family reunion last year, 2 younger cousins, 7F, 8F, complained about him making them uncomfortable and showing them things on his phone. The family brushed it off as a misunderstanding and the girl's parents were pressured to not make a scene. Update 1: I need to update everyone on the situation with Brian and Kimberly's family because things have gotten much worse. The events of the past 2 weeks have been incredibly stressful, and what started as family pressure has turned into something much darker. A few days after my last post, Kimberly's sister Amy called to warn us about something disturbing. She had overheard their parents talking about exposing the truth about Emma. At first, we didn't understand what they meant. Then the rumors started spreading through the family. They were telling everyone that Emma isn't actually my daughter and that's why I hate children and refuse to help Brian. This is completely false and honestly absurd. Emma looks exactly like me, she has my eyes, my smile, even my dimples. Kimberly and I didn't even meet until 2 years after she broke up with her college boyfriend. But truth doesn't matter to them, they're trying to destroy my reputation to force us to take Brian. When Kimberly heard about the rumors, something in her finally snapped. She called her parents and confronted them on speakerphone. I've never seen her so angry. She demanded they stop spreading lies about our family and respect our decision about Brian. Their response was chilling. Her mom said Kimberly had chosen her controlling husband over family and her dad threatened to expose the truth about your marriage. When Kimberly mentioned the incident with Emma and Brian, they accused her of making up stories to justify abandoning her brother. The next day, Kimberly's cousin Jessica sent us screenshots of something disturbing. Brian had created multiple fake social media accounts pretending to be Emily, our former babysitter who quit last month for a full-time job. He was using these accounts to message relatives claiming he had proof about Emma's paternity. The messages included private details about our home and family that only someone who had been inside our house would know, details Brian learned during his Christmas stay. When Kimberly called her parents about the fake accounts, their response was infuriating. They defended Brian, saying he was acting out because we rejected him and that we should understand his pain. They suggested that if we didn't want him spreading rumors, we should reconsider our decision about taking him in. It was basically blackmail. But the situation got even more serious last Thursday. Kimberly got a call from Mrs. Anderson, Emma's preschool teacher. She reported that Brian had been seen hanging around the school playground during recess 2 days in a row. When staff approached him, he claimed he was just checking on his niece. They had to threaten to call the police to make him leave. The second time, he was seen talking to Emma through the fence before teachers noticed and brought all the kids inside. Kimberly was absolutely horrified. We immediately went to the school to review their security footage. Sure enough, there was Brian, wearing his signature smirk, trying to interact with Emma. When we showed the footage to Kimberly's parents, their response was beyond belief. Her mom said Brian was just trying to be close to his niece because he misses his family. Her dad accused us of being paranoid and said we were demonizing normal behavior. That was the breaking point for Kimberly. She finally agreed that we needed to cut all contact with her parents until they get Brian professional help. We filed a police report about the school incidents and got a temporary restraining order against Brian. We also hired a lawyer to deal with any potential escalation. The family has completely fractured over this. Kimberly's older sister Amy and a few cousins who have young children understand our concerns and support us. They've shared their own stories about Brian's inappropriate behavior that they were previously afraid to mention. But others are still backing Kimberly's parents, saying we're destroying the family and that Brian just needs love and understanding. Some have even suggested that getting law enforcement involved will ruin Brian's future. We've had to take serious security measures. I installed cameras around our house and got a Ring doorbell with motion alerts. We gave Emma's school a list of approved people for pickup and showed them pictures of Brian and Kimberly's parents with strict instructions not to let them near Emma. I've also been working from home more often to make sure everything's okay. Kimberly is really struggling with guilt and anxiety. Her parents have always been manipulative, but she never thought they'd go this far. She started seeing a therapist to deal with the emotional toll of all this. It's been hard watching her realize that her parents care more about enabling Brian than protecting their granddaughter. The silver lining, if there is one, is that this crisis has actually brought Kimberly and me closer together. Now that she's seeing her parents' manipulation clearly, we're completely united in protecting our daughter. She's stopped answering their calls and blocked most of the relatives who are harassing us. We have a meeting with our lawyer next week to discuss additional legal options. The police are also investigating the social media impersonation, though they said it might be hard to prove it was Brian without direct evidence. For now, we're focusing on keeping Emma safe and supporting each other through this nightmare. I'm still angry and worried, but also relieved that Kimberly finally sees the situation clearly. Some of our friends who initially criticized us have also changed their minds after learning about the school incidents. I'll update again if anything significant happens. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice on my last post, it really helped us stay strong through this. Update 2: I need to share some shocking discoveries we've made over the past few weeks. After getting the restraining order, we hoped things would calm down, but instead, Kimberly's parents escalated their campaign against us in ways we never expected. About 3 weeks ago, we started getting anonymous emails containing old photos of Kimberly with her ex-boyfriend from college, Matt. The emails suggested that the timeline of their relationship overlapped with Emma's conception. This was completely impossible. Kimberly and Matt broke up in 2012, and we didn't meet until 2014. Emma was born in 2020. The photos were clearly pulled from Kimberly's old social media accounts that she hadn't used in years. Then the anonymous calls started. Someone would call from different numbers, usually late at night, playing recordings of what sounded like Kimberly's voice saying inappropriate things. We eventually realized these were clips taken from old videos of Kimberly's college theater performances, edited and pieced together to sound incriminating. The breaking point came last week when Kimberly's cousin Lisa reached out to us privately. Her son Kevin, 14M, had come to her with disturbing information. During a family gathering we didn't attend, Brian had been bragging to Kevin about a deal he made with his parents. They had promised to buy him a new car, specifically a BMW M3 he'd been wanting, if he could find or create proof that Emma wasn't mine. Brian showed Kevin text messages from his parents discussing this plan. Lisa was horrified and started paying more attention to family group chats we'd been removed from. She shared dozens of screenshots showing Kimberly's parents orchestrating their harassment campaign. They had been coordinating with various family members, telling different people different versions of events to maximize drama. They discussed hiring a private investigator to dig up dirt on me and even talked about trying to contact my ex-girlfriends from before Kimberly. But the most disturbing revelation came from Lisa's husband Tom, who works at the school district office where Brian was last enrolled. After hearing about Brian's behavior around Emma, Tom did some digging into Brian's school records. What he found was shocking. Brian had been involved in 3 separate incidents of inappropriate behavior with younger students at his previous schools. In each case, Kimberly's parents had paid off the families and arranged to quickly transfer Brian to a different school before any official investigation could start. The first incident was when Brian was 14. He was caught showing pornographic material to 6th grade girls during lunch break. The second was similar but escalated to inappropriate touching. The third incident, which led to his final expulsion, involved him taking inappropriate photos of female students in the locker room. Each time, Kimberly's parents threw money at the problem until it went away. This explained why they were so desperate to move Brian to our area. People in their town were starting to talk, and they were running out of schools willing to take him. They thought living with us would both solve their reputation problem and give them leverage over our family. Kimberly was physically sick when she learned all this. She called her parents, put them on speaker, and confronted them with everything we learned. To our surprise, they didn't even deny it. Instead, they broke down and tried to justify everything. Her mom cried about how they were just trying to protect Brian's future and keep the family together. Her dad insisted that Brian was misunderstood and that living with us would help him develop normal relationships. When Kimberly asked about the car deal with Brian and the harassment campaign against us, her mom actually tried to defend it. She said they were desperate to protect their son and thought if they could prove I was no better than Brian, by showing Emma wasn't mine, we'd have to take him in. They seemed to have convinced themselves that their actions were justified because they were doing it for family. The final straw was when they suggested that Emma would benefit from having Brian live with us because it would teach her forgiveness and help her understand complex family dynamics. Kimberly ended the call right there. We've turned all the evidence over to our lawyer and the police. The school district is also opening an investigation into how Brian's previous incidents were handled. Several of the families involved have been contacted, and some are considering legal action against Kimberly's parents. Most of the extended family has gone quiet since these revelations came out. Those who were criticizing us have suddenly stopped calling. A few have reached out to apologize for believing Kimberly's parents, but most are just pretending none of this ever happened. Update 3: A lot has changed since my last update, and I wanted to give everyone some closure on this situation. The past 6 months have been challenging but also transformative for our family. After the evidence about Brian's previous incidents came to light, several things happened rapidly. 2 families from his previous schools came forward with legal action against Kimberly's parents, claiming their settlements had included illegal non-disclosure agreements about Brian's behavior. This forced Kimberly's parents to finally get Brian proper help. They enrolled him in a residential treatment program specializing in troubled teens with inappropriate sexual behaviors. The police investigation into the harassment campaign led to Kimberly's parents being charged with cyber stalking and harassment. They accepted a plea deal that included mandatory counseling and a significant fine. They're also under a permanent restraining order that prevents them from coming near our family or contacting us directly. We sold our house and moved to a different school district about an hour away. The decision wasn't easy, but after discovering that Brian had kept detailed notes about our daily routines and security setup, we didn't feel safe staying. Our new home is in a gated community with better security, and Emma is thriving in her new school. Kimberly has gone through an intense period of grief and healing. She found a support group for adult children of manipulative parents, which has helped her process everything. She still occasionally gets messages from her parents through other family members, usually guilt-tripping attempts about Brian's progress in treatment, but she stays firm about maintaining our boundaries. Last month, we received a letter from Brian's treatment center. His therapist wrote that Brian wanted to apologize for his behavior. The letter seemed rehearsed and focused more on how hard things were for him than actual remorse for his actions. Kimberly wrote back declining any contact and wishing him success in his treatment. Kimberly's parents recently reached out through their lawyer asking about reconciliation once Brian completes his program. They suggested family therapy and supervised visits, promising things would be different. We declined. As Kimberly put it, some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned. The trust is completely destroyed, and Emma's safety is our top priority. The extended family situation has evolved interestingly. Most relatives who initially attacked us have awkwardly tried to re-establish contact, usually pretending nothing happened. We've kept our distance from most of them. However, Lisa and Tom, who helped expose the truth, have become closer friends, and their son Kevin often babysits Emma under our supervision. Emma has adjusted well to all the changes. We were worried the move would be hard on her, but she's made new friends quickly and loves her new school. We've also started her in age-appropriate safety classes, teaching her about boundaries and appropriate behavior in a way she can understand. Looking back, standing firm against Kimberly's parents was absolutely the right decision, even though it cost us relationships with family members. Kimberly sometimes says she wishes she had seen through her parents' manipulation sooner, but I remind her that she took action as soon as she understood the real situation. We're focusing on our own family now and creating new traditions without the toxic influences. Some people still think we're too harsh for refusing to consider reconciliation, but they haven't lived through what we have. Sometimes protecting your child means making difficult choices that others won't understand. Thank you to everyone who supported us through this journey. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that real family is about protecting and supporting each other, not enabling harmful behavior in the name of keeping the family together.